I will have her tell you about it though. But let me read Brenda's background because I'm really good at messing up people's bios when I try to do it off cuff. So bear with me a few seconds while I read. So, Brenda Liz is a holistic transformational coach passionate about helping leadership and executive women break free from the cycles of burnout and live a life filled with purpose, energy, and joy while increasing their overall wealth. With their background as a breath work coach, neurolinguistic master practitioner, hypnosis, yeah, I can't even say some of these words, I'm stumbling over in my mouth,
It's
an
okay. It's
energy
okay.
worker. She has developed the Ending Your Burnout Now method. I'm going to repeat that again because we need to hear that in the professional space. Ending Your Burnout Now method to empower women to tap into their inner worthiness. I love me some of that. Eliminate burnout and create balance across their careers, families, and personal lives. After facing her own career transition and personal challenges, she found new ways to thrive and wanted to share these tools with others. Thank you for doing that, Brenda. She offers one on one group coaching programs, guided breathing meditation, self hypnosis, and live events designed to help executive women move past burnout, reconnect with their passion, and build fulfilling lives. She's dedicated to providing safe, transformative spaces where women can release limiting beliefs, cultivate resilience, and grow with confidence.
Woo! P.S. She laughs a lot.
Hello, the LinkedIn user said hi.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, Brenda Liz. Oh my God. So you have done so much in your career. How you said you talked about like you faced your own career transitions. Like, how did you get into this space?
So I'm I'm gonna the way I tell people is my career grew very exponentially and pretty quickly. I was constantly moving jobs, like every 2 months, 2 years. Sorry, I had a new job, like a new role, and I was learning new things and then doing contributing. I was like really, really moving fast, and I was getting a lot of opportunities. But I never chose my career. I never made conscious decisions about and sat down to think, is this really the path that I want to go? I was just given the opportunities open, and I just jumped at the opportunities. Now, in 2016, I had a well, let me take it back a step further. In 2007, I almost lost my husband. And yeah, due to a freak accident, he had two strokes at the age of 32. And like 31, he was at that time. And it kind of shook us a little bit because both of us at that time, we were working so many long hours. He had two jobs and sometimes three jobs. And I was like working really long hours. And it was all about the grind and the work, but we were not really having quality life as a couple, and we didn't have kids, so it didn't matter at that time because we didn't have kids. But as a couple, we were not having the quality time. Now, fast forward to at that point, we started to make changes. But fast forward to 2016, I guess I didn't learn my lesson we didn't learn our lesson as a family, because in 2016 I had an injury that took me through a spiral. And that's the injury that I tell everybody that really shook me to the bones. I went into It was a freak accident. And in the freak accident, I hit my head with the border of a car, and then basically I ended up having an emergency cervical fusion. But it's not about the incident per se. It's about the awakening that happened as a result of that incident. because in order for me to recover and to even feel functional, I had to go through a lot of learning of the power of the mind, the power of the unconscious, how to practice gratitude, practices of meditation, journaling, yoga, Reiki, acupuncture. Like I looked at everything that could be holistic, right? There was a big component in all of this. I had a lot of emotional and mental baggage, part because of the accident and part because of things that I had experienced in my life before. Um, and when I went back to work, I felt very incomplete. I wasn't happy. I was miserable. I was in constant pain. And it was like I would go to work and I didn't have pain. And by the time I get home, my body was aching completely in pain. And it was, I kept on learning more and more things. And until 2022, when I lost my job, I was like, okay, now it's my time. I'm going to reinvent myself and I'm going to take everything I have learned through my own personal recovery and I'm going to build myself up to help others like me. And that's how I ended up doing the work I'm doing today, which can be applied. I'm applying it today to burnout, but can be applied to many different challenges that we experience in life. Um, Go ahead, friend.
I was gonna ask, like, what was the first thing that pushed you into? Was there a book or something, or a friend? Like, how did you know to like go, or yeah, for the direction in in the holistic field? Like, what was the catalyst to that? I know you said you had gotten into an accident,
Mm-hmm.
but were you talking to a friend? Like, what happened?
Okay, so when I got into that accident and I was in doing after the surgery, the cervical fusion, and I was in the recovery process, I was in constant pain, but extremely, extremely high levels of pain. Like I couldn't move my arms. I was uncomfortable. I couldn't even sit. I couldn't sleep because sleeping was painful for me. Like everything was painful. And I went to the doctors constantly and they would check and they would say, like, they would do another MRI, they would do another thing, and nothing was coming out. And the doctor is like, everything we've checked everything, Brenda. You're recovering the way you're supposed to recover. There's nothing wrong physically with you. And yes, there were still some things wrong with me physically, but there were more emotional and mental things happening to me. And I was so focused on the pain that I couldn't see the bigger picture. And one day, I remember I was in my bed and I started to think, I'm sure I'm not alone. I'm sure there's hundreds of people who have gone through a cervical fusion and their recovery has been a nightmare. And it was like an aha moment for me, like search for other people who have experienced the same thing. I've always been someone who is extremely curious, so I've always been that person that, like, I get these knowings or these questions in my head and then I go on spirals to try to answer them, right? And that's how I learn and I expand and I help the way I help people. And I started to look in the internet, and I remember, I think it was in Reddit, that I found like a whole bunch of comments of people who had the exact same question as I did, exactly the same question. And then I started to go through the levels of answers, and there's always the negative people, the people who are like like you should go and check your doctor or go to this other doctor or go to this other doctor. But then there were the answers that were beyond medicine. There were the answers that were about, um you know what, you're so focused in your recovery, you're so focused in your pain. What if you start to actually look at different things to involve your mind so you're not so focused on the recovery? And then some people were sharing their experiences. Oh, I went through the same, and I started to practice yoga once a day, and the yoga actually started to clear my mind. And then I started to do write. I started to write, which is I'm really passionate about. Somebody said I started to paint again. I started to go to group sessions with other people to connect with other people. I started to go to Reiki. I started to do, and there was this lady that actually said, "Oh, I started to practice journaling and gratitude and changing the way I'm thinking about it." And funny enough, I went into the internet and I went to a support group. And this is how my life has always been. I have a question, and then all of a sudden I have a nudge of going somewhere, and the answer is there, right? So I was asking myself all these questions, and I go into I think it was a local group in New Jersey that it's really focused on holistic health. And somebody mentioned in that post Abraham Hicks. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go and I started to go down that rabbit hole. And then I started to do Abraham Hicks well-being meditation, which is the meditation that really changed my life because I couldn't get myself to think beyond. And that's the first meditation that got me into tapping into my breathing power. So I started to do that meditation to the point where it's anchored in me. I listen to the music and I already go in the state of relaxation. Like I've done it so many times that that meditation is completely anchored. Um, and from Abraham Hicks came Louise Hay. I read Louise Hay book. From Louise Hay came Dr. Joe Dispenza, the placebo effect. From Dr. Joe Dispenza came Gabrielle Bernstein, and it was like a ripple effect. And I kept on going deep. And then now it's the letting go book, and the Four Amendments, and you can keep on. I can keep on going. So it was a path. It was like I now seeing it from the outside. I needed to go through this. Like I was, my life was, my soul was telling me my life should go this way, and I consciously was choosing it to go that way. And I kept on going that way, that way, that way, with all the work, with all the focus, with the focus on corporate. I kept on going that way. And my soul is like trying to bring me back. Boom. And I kept on going that way. So that's why I say to people, everything happened in a way to show me the path where I am today.
What an amazing story. Sometimes it happens like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just have that nudge, you have that question, and the universe is so beautiful to create these synchronicities and setup that you will find the answer that you're looking for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one thing led to another. And then when I lost but the funny part is, even though I did big changes in my life, because I did, there was still some components of my healing journey that I had not tackled. And then I lose my job in 2022. And like when it when what's the saying? The saying is, when it rains it pours, or something like that. I don't even know in English. I know that in Spanish is cuando si por mí llueve que escampe. O no, no, la comida del pobre llega toda junta. Like the food of the poor all comes at the same time. So that's how I felt. Like everything was coming to me all fiercely at the same time. I lost my job and I was very optimistic because I'm like, this is my moment. I'm going to still go back to corporate America. Naive Brenda Liz was thinking that I'm going to find my job. I'm going to secure my family very well. And I'm going to build my business on the side because this is a message that I need to build my business. I couldn't get myself to do that. Like my soul was fighting with me so big that I couldn't. And it was like it was showing me everything I had not dealt with, that it was the time to deal with. And then it took me on a path where I opened the door to neuro-linguistic programming. And within neuro-linguistic programming, there's mental and emotional release, there's hypnosis, there's many other things that we do. Uh, and it changed me completely. And I
For
know,
for
sorry.
those that are for those that are watching, what is could you let them know what neurolinguistic programming is? At that,
So
they might not know what it is.
it's NLP, but it's not the computer-based NLP. It's basically the simplest way I can explain it is when you basically consider your operating system, right? Your mind, and then the language that your mind speaks and the programming that your mind has. So it's the combination between the mind, the language, and the programming. So in the programming, it's our belief systems, it's our experiences, and all of that. And then the language is the way we communicate with the mind, right? And then the mind itself as the main communicator and connector, right? So it's like basically leveraging the language of the mind, right? And finding ways to optimize that programming that gets you to take the actions that you take today. So it's all about understanding the our unconscious programming. Some people call it subconscious. I call it unconscious. Um, it's understanding how our unconscious programming it's impacting all of our actions. And we part from the premise that change happens unconsciously, that we can change things at the unconscious level. And as a result, change is faster. And when you understand, I remember even looking at their NLP communication model, which is a game changer for me. And it was like everything clicked for me because it was understanding, and I'm going to explain it this as simple as I can right now. It's trying to absorb that you're absorbing 2 million bits of information at a time and through all your senses, right? And out of those 2 million bits of information, you create an image in your mind that it's only 126 bits. So you go from absorbing 2 million bits of information to 126 bits of information. Then there's something that has to happen to get you from this amount of data to all of a sudden you're creating an image in your mind and making decisions just based on 126. Now, what it created for me was this aha moment to recognize and understand no wonder why there's so many challenges in the world where people are miscommunicating, misunderstanding each other, because my perspective of the same incident that you experience, it's going to be my own 126, and my 126 could be completely different from your 126. No wonder why there's so many challenges in the world and why we don't understand each other, not just from a communication perspective, but from a humanity perspective. And what it says, the communication model, what it taught me was in order to get from these 2 million bits to these 126, what happens is that you either generalize things, distort things, or delete things. So, have you ever been looking for keys and all of a sudden you're like, I don't see them, I don't see them, or you left something somewhere and you're like, I don't find it, I don't see it, I know it's here. And then you leave and all of a sudden come back and it was right there, standing in front of you all along. But think about the concept of going from 2 million bits of information to 126. You deleted that piece of information because you couldn't digest it consciously.
So those
So
three things you said is generalize, and what were
distort
the other two? Distort.
and delete. So what happens in order for you to do any of those three, you're going to do it based on your programming. You're going to do it based on your experience, based on your culture, based on the language you speak, based on the belief system that you have, based on your values.
So it's all these filters that we have to go through.
All these filters that we have to go through. Absolutely. And when you understand that all these filters are the ones creating your reality, because then I create this image, and based on this image, I'm taking action, and then like I'm behaving a certain way and I'm taking action, right? So this 126 is driving my results. What happens if you change this 126? What happens when you change these filters or you declutter these filters? What can happen in your life, because now you have a 126 that it's completely different, because now conscious that now you're choosing a completely different 126.
Yeah, we can free up some space then, right, to create something new.
You can expand the way you think. You can then attract things from a place of alignment. People talk a lot about manifestation, and I know we're deviating a little bit from burnout, but it will all connect. People talk a lot about manifesting, right? And everything in our life is a manifestation. If it's good or bad, it's still a manifestation because it's based on where we are, right? Now, you either are creating your life from a place of alignment or you're creating a life from a place of contrast. So if you let that program that has been there, and let me tell you, when I work with my clients, they are like, but that's somebody's else decision based on somebody's else actions, based on somebody's else problem. I made this decision about myself. Yes, based on somebody else, based on something that somebody else may have told you. You made a decision about yourself, and that shapes how you see the world. The moment you start to change those filters, you see the world very differently. I was one of those. I was one of those that was very reactive. I remember being in corporate, Fran, and I remember being in meetings with people, and like I would leave the meeting feeling deflated, like this person said this and they shouldn't have because they don't know me enough. I was very reactive. I am 100% sure that if that situation happens to me today, I will manage it completely different because I have done so much healing work that I have come to understand and realize that I'm the one in control of my world. And if it bothers me how somebody else reacts, that's a reflection that there's something inside of me that is in misalignment with who I'm meant to be.
I'm glad that you brought that up because we do find ourselves judging other people based off of the experiences that we have. And that judgment is really more of, like you said, something inside of us that really needs some attention.
Hmm. And it's really interesting because we ask for clarity, we pray to God, we ask for clarity. Then we have a challenge in our life, and we see that challenge as something bad. And I'm not saying that we create things on we want to screw our lives on purpose. No. What I'm saying is that that challenge is that challenge may be an answer to the prayer that you're asking, because maybe you're asking like, I want to be able to do this. Well, you know what, you're not going to do it overnight. You have to learn your lesson. So how do I learn the lesson? Through the contrast. Now, go ahead.
No, I just think the language that you're using is very important because versus looking at something as a challenge and labeling it as a contrast, I think would make the approach more easier or palatable for the person experiencing it.
Yeah, I feel life, and even with doing the work that I do, you're gonna, and I tell this to my clients all the time, just because we did this work doesn't mean you're not going to have challenges and contrasts in your life. That's part of the human experience. That's going to happen regardless of, because we're constantly evolving, we're constantly learning, and we every day we become a different person because we're changing constantly. I'm not the person I was 5 minutes ago, because this conversation leads me to different connections, right? I'm not the person I'm going to be 5 minutes down the road. I'm not the person I'm going to be tomorrow. We're constantly changing. And I tell my clients, it's not about experiencing contrast in life. It's about how you handle it and then how you move through it without ignoring it, without pushing it aside. Because when you ignore things and you push things aside, they become baggage.
Which is a great segue into what the burnout. You said that there was
Absolutely.
three most overlooked causes of burnout.
Absolutely. There's the three most overlooked causes of burnout, and it connects. And that is why I say, don't worry, because it's all gonna connect. So one of them being, if you're doing a job that it's not in alignment with your purpose, with who you are as a person, and that job doesn't, you're showing up to a job just because of a paycheck, and you're not happy about it, then as a result, that's the energy you're going to be bringing to your job. Then everything you're doing, you're going to do it from a place of discomfort. Okay. Second is our value system. If there's conflict within your own internal value system, and now you go to work for someone whose value system is completely disaligned with yours, now the conflict becomes even bigger. Now, I had a conversation with someone a while back, and they said, well, company values and your values, there's always going to be a difference. Yes, there's always going to be a difference. The key is that they're not they're not fighting against each other. So if there's a value, or and it's not about the company's values, it's more about the values of the people who work for the company, because at the end of the day, the company may have these beautiful values, but if the management doesn't execute those values, right, then it's now you have the combination of the company values plus management values, individual values. And if there's a misalignment there and their values are completely different from yours, you're gonna show up, you're gonna be frustrated, you're not gonna be happy, you are gonna be asked to do work, you're gonna be overthinking things, you're gonna be pushed into procrastination, and then all of a sudden you begin to get sick and you're wondering why. So that's the second one. And last but not least, this one aligns with the everything else we talked about. It's our belief system. If our belief system is so ingrained in us, some of our beliefs come past generations, they were passed down to us. Some of our beliefs could come, if you believe in past life, could come from past lives. Some of our beliefs actually were generated while you were in your mom's belly, when you were 2 years old. Some of these things, we don't remember them consciously. They're so ingrained unconsciously that we're just like how we breathe. We are not telling our body, inhale now, exhale now. We're not telling our heartbeat, do this, do that. No, we're not telling our body to operate. Our body is operating unconsciously all the time. We don't tell ourselves when we get in front of a car, oh, let me put the car in park, let me put this, let me do that, we do it, we get in the car once you know how to drive, and we do everything unconsciously because we are competent enough to do things unconsciously. And the same thing with our belief system. Our belief system is so ingrained in us that sometimes that thing that you think differentiates you from the other ones could be that same belief that could be holding you back from living a life free of burnout. I did a deep dive specifically in Latina women's, but this can apply across different cultures because I think a lot of the things they're very similar. They might be in different magnitude in each one, but like at the end of the day, a lot of them are very similar from one culture to another. Like for example, growing up as a Latina, and I grew up in a household where we were four girls growing up together. Since I was very little, my dad implanted on us that we had to be self-sufficient, that we couldn't depend on anybody. That like, and my dad also implanted on us without even realizing it, that in order for me to be successful, I had to prove myself over and over, and I had to uh, uh, like show my value and work very hard. Because if I work very hard, success was going to be granted. So what happens when I grow up? I work extremely hard. I was working long, long hours. Was burning both sides of the candle because I had to constantly prove over and over who I was. And I had to be self sufficient. I can't depend on anybody, which means if I'm in my corporate job and I'm managing multiple people, then what happens is now I don't accept other people's help because I need to be self sufficient, because it's so embedded into who I am that I can't see it in any other way. So our beliefs drive our actions significantly. They drive the way we see the world, and as a result, our actions. So when you start to shift, let go, change your belief system, and embrace new beliefs that are very empowering, now your behaviors begin to change. Because people constantly were telling me, oh, it's simple, just put boundaries. I can put boundaries, but if I don't get to the root cause, that's why I don't work in boundaries until we've gone to the root cause, until we've gone deep, deep enough to remove that root cause and to really start to shift things around. Then, once the person does that reset, I work with the boundaries, I work with the habits. Because why work with the habits and the boundaries when there's this unconscious programming is so embedded? It takes 10 times the effort. And it's not that it cannot happen. I'm not going against anybody here. It can still happen. The change will happen if you put the work. But do I go the path of least resistance, or do I go the path of making it harder on myself? And I chose the path of least resistance, which doesn't mean I'm bypassing spirituality. I'm doing the spiritual bypass. It doesn't mean that. What it means is that I have learned how to go through the emotions, move through them in a way that I don't let these emotions become baggage. And that's the best gift every individual can give themselves.
So for people that don't know how to do that, I'd love for you to share with them what maybe a technique would look like. But before you answer that, I
Mhm.
wanted to just go over the three items that you talked about. So the first one is basically our alignment with ourselves and what we want to do.
Mhm.
And the
It,
second one
mhm.
is our value system, whether it's
Absolutely.
aligned with, I guess, our work, our
Mhm.
profession. And then the third one is our belief systems.
So, and yes, the third one is the belief system. Absolutely.
And then the question that I asked you earlier.
Okay, so there's multiple techniques that you can do to do all of this. My favorite one, it's called the letting go, and it's the simplest one to actually deal with, which is about and I'm just gonna mention it. I'm not gonna take you guys through the technique or anything. I'm just gonna explain the technique, right? Um, uh, because I think it will be very irresponsible to try to take you guys through that technique right now if I'm not there to support anything that can come up. But it's the technique is simple. It's about just allowing yourself to sit, let that emotion or baggage that it's coming up come out, observing it without judgment, literally observing it without judgment, let it expand or contrast without judgment, and then sending unconditional love. So at the end of the day, that emotion, that belief, that emotion that it's connected, it could be connected to a belief or it could be connected to something else, that it's coming up now has done what it came to do and no longer needs to exist. And it's a very powerful technique. I have taken people through this technique, and within 5 minutes, they're like, shit, it's gone. Oops, shit, it's gone. It's not there. Some people, it might take them much longer, depending on how deep the challenge is, how deeply rooted it is, if it's something you've been carrying for longer. Like, and it could be that all of a sudden you started to feel that emotion in your chest, and that emotion's moving to your spleen or moving to your kidneys or moving to your legs. And it's about allowing yourself to let that emotion go through your body. And people may be skeptical, people might say, well, Brenda, but because the but comes immediately when there's a skepticism. But Brenda, I've tried to be with my emotions. I have cried it out, and it's still there. Because it's not just about crying it out, it's about allowing that emotion, that feeling to expand and contrast and dilute on its own. We try to control it. We try to, okay, we cry it out, but we're fighting it. When you're crying it out and fighting it, you scream it out and you're tied into the emotion, you're not letting it go.
I remember the first time I did that, I'm like, how can I allow this motion to be expressed and not judge it?
And it's hard. That's the hard part, but it doesn't need to be hard. I think with the right guidance, it can be very simple. I remember, because I'm one of those that used to need a lot of proof. I remember, and I'm like, is it that really that simple? Yeah, it's that simple.
It really is
Now,
that simple.
now the challenge I have, it's now you're addressing one thing at a time, right? And when I work with my clients one-on-one, we go, we hide, it's like we bring to the surface a lot of the baggage and the emotions, and then we go to the event that it's that we part from the premise that there's an event, there's a belief very rooted, that it's the one driving all of these behaviors, all of these bottled emotions. So we identify that one, and when we identify that one, then what we do is we let it go with a very special technique, and it basically kind of disappear. It's like it melts, the learning is captured, you change your 126, and now you can start to then let go of everything that happened after it. Letting go, it happens really quickly, and it can happen as easy as 3 minutes, or it could happen as long as you want it to happen, right? You can make it hard, or you can surrender into the process and then allow it to be what it's meant to be.
That was a great tool. I love that tool. I remember using that when I first started my healing journey. So thank you for bringing that up. You guys, she just
And there's
dropped some.
plenty of more. There's plenty of more where that one came from, but that's a good one for today.
Now I wanted to roll into breath work and how it could benefit us.
Ooh.
Because
So,
earlier we talked about your breath lab, and
mm,
gosh, there's so many things you're doing, but please, please, please take the floor.
so, so I'll tell you something. When I was doing this work and I started to work with people, I feel I that in order to go really deep and really fast and like really drive change very sustainable, people need to be ready. They need to be ready to do the change. And sometimes people are not in that point of being ready to do that work, right? Because they're still trying to understand things, right? Coming from a conscious point of view. Uh, then what it dawned on me is that I began to use breath work because of what I explained at the beginning of the session, because of my injury. And then I began to do it even at a different level, from a somatic point of view, when I began my business, because I needed to move stock energy in my body that I was absorbing from my clients. And I realized that breath work is a very simple way where you're going back to your foundation. You're going back into allowing your body to operate at its best, because you're balancing your body, or you're removing stock energy from your body, and you're opening space, right? So when you do breathing techniques like the ones I teach in the breathing lab, um, you are basically allowing your body to rebalance, or to uh, readjust. So now if there was a lot of stress that was actually signaling your cells in a certain way, now your cells can signal in an optimum way, because this stress is not blocking your cells to operate the optimum way. Now you're opening space to operate optimum. So I created the breathing lab, because for me, it's a safe space where collectively we're all breathing together. And at the same time, there's a power to collective energy. Even if we are on Zoom, oh my goodness, there's a power to collective energy. And I'll share with you a fun story, but I'll share it right after I explain this. And I was like, how can I help people right now to start to step into their power and into their own inner healing journey in a way that it just comes organically? And what better way to do it than with the breathing lab? And the breathing lab is, I'll do sessions weekly, 30 minutes. A big portion of the session is explaining the techniques, and then answering questions people have. The techniques are not going to be long. There's going to be recordings of those sessions for those who cannot attend live. There's going to be additional tools and techniques shared in the library as they come up. So let's say we're in a session, something comes up, and there's an opportunity for me to do a 3-minute video to explain something and show you guys something else. Then I'll probably take it and I'll probably record it, and it's probably going to be there. Right now, it's in the early stages, meaning that I just developed the infrastructure for the community, for the course, for the material. And as soon as people start to sign up, then we'll start to have the live sessions, and we're going to start to build the library. So even though I'm starting to record some smaller things, the big momentum of the building of the library is going to happen as soon as people jump into the program. Now, I am offering Founders Prize, which is basically, and I'm offering for life, for the life of the program, and for the life of you, the person being in the membership, right? So if you grab the Founders Prize, and next year I go in and increase the price, because now the value that I'm offering is so high, you're going to remain with your Founders Prize. So there is a big benefit to grabbing that Founders Prize. So Founders Prize could go out tomorrow, could go out. To be honest, it's not going to go out tomorrow, but probably after Thanksgiving, it might disappear. So if you're thinking about it, then go and grab your spot. Now, it's focused on women. It's a space that I have created for women in leadership, executive positions, CEOs. So if you don't fall into that category, then there's still the Breathing Lab YouTube, where I'm sharing techniques. So you can go ahead and follow me there, and you can still benefit from some of the tips and quick techniques that I'm going to be teaching over there too. So
are you still doing like the 7-minute breathing sessions?
So that's replaced. So I was doing those sessions 2 times a week in LinkedIn audio rooms. And what I have done is I have turned that into the breathing lab. And then what I'm doing is I'm actually taking some of the techniques that I have taught there and then creating short videos in YouTube to people for people to be instructed and also guided. And if it's something that they want to continue doing, then they can join the Breathing Lab membership. So there's YouTube Breathing Lab, which is free and it's for everyone. Then there is the Breathing Lab membership, which is for women who are in leadership and executives, etc. And then there's other things I'm working on. There's the one-on-ones, there's other things, but yeah, those two at least. Yeah.
So we are wrapping up our session. The last 15 minutes is focused on a round robin. And afterwards, I want you to share with people, where they can find you and just drop some nuggets for them.
Can I
So,
share the funny story about breathwork really quickly? It will take me
sure.
30 seconds. So I I have heard about the power of the collective for a long time, right? You hear people talk about the power of the collective, the energy, the power of the energy of the collective. And I was actually leading a somatic breathwork experience, which is deeper breathing, which is used to remove trauma that it's in your body, stuck in your body. And I had all these women that I'm seeing them in the Zoom screen and talking about the power of the collective. They were all their breathing was completely synchronized. They were all inhaling at the same time and they were all exhaling at the same time. And if you had done a journey with me that it's somatic, you know that I'm not counting and that you're basically just focusing on doing the breathing technique at your own pace in a certain way. So one person could be inhaling while the other person is exhaling, and that's okay. But it was beautiful to see how all these people that were in my audience, their breathing was completely synchronized.
What a great story. I love that. So we're gonna shoot right into our questions, and I'll ask you three. The first one is, what's something interesting people don't know about you?
I love painting and cooking.
What are you painting usually?
I paint abstracts, and I do a lot of digital, like digital artwork in black and white. And some people know this, but a lot of people don't know this.
I think I saw some of yours on LinkedIn.
Actually, that one on the back. Okay, let me see if I can move. It's mine, the heart.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, let me see. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh my goodness. There's so many. Um, I think it came from my father. Even though he gave me a lot of baggage, it doesn't matter. He still gave me good advice. I love him. I adore him. He knows that. Um, I mean, we give a lot of baggage to our kids, so that's normal. Um, and it was about resiliency, right? Um, he would always say, if you fall down, get up, dust yourself, and keep going. Learn the lesson and keep going. Um, and I remember being in college and doing a summer calculus class. And by the way, I graduated from a bachelor's degree in mathematics, right? So I remember being in college and doing my calculus class in the summer. And I didn't do it in the college that I was, I did it in the engineering college, right? So the teachers were harder. And I think a lot of people told me that the teacher I had was horrible. And I came into that class thinking that he was horrible and that I was going to fail from the moment I came in. I had a F bigger than my face on my first test. Like literally, I came home and I cried. I was like so frustrated. I wanted to give up. I wanted to literally just quit and then take it again in the other college with the teachers I knew. That's my mentality at that point. And my dad said, okay, so what lesson did you learn? Well, I could have studied differently. I could have done that. Okay. So, okay, what are you going to do different? Well, okay, I'm going to study this way. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm not going to pay attention to what people are saying. Okay. So, what's holding you from doing it? And I was like, okay, nothing's holding me. So, he was like, okay, so you failed. And what? Get up and try again. And that sticked in my head so much because then what did I do? I changed my strategy. For the next three tests, I got 100 in each of the tests. And then, regardless of the fact, you could add it all. I wasn't going to get an A in class if the teacher did it the mathematical way. And the teacher was like, the professor, let me not say teacher, professor was actually looking at me and he said, I can't not give you anything less. I can't give you anything less than an A because you done 100, and in the final exam you did 100. Forget about that first test. So I got an A, but I could have just let the circumstances control me and then just quit. And what he taught me was, no, you have it in you. You can do, you can change things. And I think that's the lesson. You are the one in control. You can change things.
I love how he walked you through the process, not just telling
Mhm.
you to dust yourself off, but ask yourself the more deeper questions. And I appreciate that. Beautiful. We're going to take a question from the audience here. He said,
Ooh.
Caesar Alcantara, what
Hmm.
is a difficult decision that you made to fully impact an organization or yourself that allowed you to be where you are today?
Oh, this is at so many different dimensions. So let me think about this for a second here, Cesar. Um, I mean, when I think of my career in corporate, there were a lot of moments that I was constantly making decisions that were going to have an impact. Um, I think going to the hardest, the most difficult decision um, was when I was the one leading a restructuring. And because of the plan that I was presenting, there were people impacted in the organization. It gave me a completely different perspective. And of course, when I lost my job due to a restructuring, I saw it completely different. And I could recognize and understand that, the organization is a business and it's doing what it needs to do, right? Um, it it shook me. It was really hard to sit with that employee and give them the it wasn't just one employee, but like to let them know what was happening and how they were going to be impacted. It taught me a lot of empathy and recognizing that I every time I was thinking of that decision, I was always going back to the question, why am I doing this? Am I doing this because of personal gain? Or am I doing this because it's the right decision for the organization and it's what we need to do? Otherwise, we would not survive. The organization wouldn't be there, right? And when it came down to, I'm doing this because it's the right decision in order for the organization to evolve and to be able to provide the service that we were not providing to our clients, then it made a huge difference. And it has allowed me to be where I am today because I grew up from I think the empathy that I learned from that experience has allowed me to sit and not judge and like see things from a lens of curiosity. And you can ask anybody that knows me. I'm one of those that will always, my husband says that I'm the lawyer of the world, that I could have been a lawyer in a life because I'm trying to, but the lawyer of like the people, because I'm defending everyone. Because I'm always saying, okay, that's fine. That's from your perspective, but can you see this other perspective? What about this? What about that? So I think it showed me a very different way in which the decisions that have to be made in an organization can have an impact to the people. And I also learned a lot of things I could have done differently. So it shaped who I did become later on as a leader.
What a powerful lesson. Can you let the people know where they can find you? I mean, because you have so many things going on. Tell us
Okay.
what what do you got going on, girlfriend, and where can they get you?
So if you're looking for techniques to help you with your everyday stress, then the stress lab, the breathing lab YouTube is for you. If you're looking for if you're a woman in leadership and you're looking for a community to support you through the stress management and keep on building to become the version you want to be, then the stress lab membership is for you. And all of these can be found in my LinkedIn profile, or I'll put in the comments of this live. I'll put where you can connect with. I'll put all the links. And then if you're someone who really wants to take this to the next level and you want to be able to really shake your life and be a completely different person in the next 6 months, then 101 is for you. Um, and I'm also working on, and this is for women too. It's called Elevate 90, which is a 90-day group coaching program that combines energy work, somatic breath work, and self hypnosis or meditations to help people really, really experience a very different type of transformation. So, regardless of if you're interested in one of those and one of those is better for you, reach out to me in LinkedIn, or I'll put my email too. And then, or I'll put the link to book a session with me, and then we can actually just talk. And if it makes sense, then perfect. I'm offering a session called Unlock Your Stress Free Life or Your Burnout Free Life. It's a 45-minute session designed to help you understand how your life could be without it. What are the things that are holding you back, and to really like determine what are the key next steps you have to take for you to start the change. So if that's something, and that's completely free, if that's something that interests any of you, then of course, absolutely, I'm there for you.
I'm telling you, if you have not had a coffee chat with Brenda Liz, I've had a couple with her, and even in that short breath of conversation, it was very impactful. So don't don't waste your time. Find her link and schedule something with her. She's super powerful. Brenda Liz, thank you so much for being with us. And any last words before we go?
Um, no, no last words. I'm just looking at see Cesar. He asked a question, and I don't know if you want me to answer it really quickly.
Yeah, we don't have time.
Okay, then I'll respond to it in the messages.
Okay.
Um, what I would say is you are the one in control of your life. You're always one decision away from changing things, and you're always making a choice. And not making a choice is making a choice. So if you feel you're stuck and your life is not changing, it's probably because there's something keeping you there for a specific reason, but it doesn't have to define you, and you can really overcome it and move forward. And you're the one really in control of your life. So
Thank you, Brenda Liz, for those words. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on Fran and Friends. You have a good afternoon. And Caesar, Brenda said
I'll
she's going
respond.
to answer you. All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Yep.